Okay, let's talk about Medicare for all. If you could snap your fingers today and implement the best possible healthcare system for the United States of America, what would that look like?
Well, we have a pretty good system, not great, but a pretty good system in Medicare. So it's there for the elderly, and Lyndon Johnson passed that in the 1960s, a huge step forward. It is being chopped away by the private insurance companies through Medicare Advantage. But if you strengthen Medicare and you do away with the kind of deductibles that seniors now have to pay, and you do away with other stuff, and you say basically right now you're a senior in America, you go to any doctor you want, when you're in the hospital, Medicare will pay the entire bill. If you expand Medicare to cover dental, hearing, and vision, which it doesn't now cover, you do all of those things. And then the next thing you do is say, okay, to be eligible for Medicare now, you have to be 65. First year, we're going to lower it to 55. Then we'll lower it to 45. Then we'll lower it to 35. Then we'll have everybody in the system. So I think in a 4 or 5 year period, you can strengthen Medicare and have everybody in the system. And when you do that, and this is not just me talking, a number of studies have pointed this out, when you take the profit motive out of it from the insurance companies and the drug companies, you can end up providing quality care to all people at no more than we're spending right now. Because right now, we are spending twice as much per person in healthcare as the people of any other nation. Incredibly wasteful system.
So the way to pay for the system is to increase taxes. But you're saying if you cut that cost and increase the taxes, you're saying it's going to balance itself out.
Here's the story. And I've gotten my share of 30-second ads attacking me on this. Bernie Sanders wants to raise your taxes on healthcare. It's true, in a progressive way. But right now, do you have health insurance?
Yes.
Okay. Somebody's paying for your health insurance. It depends. If you are working, most people get their health insurance through their jobs, okay? So if you're working for a large company, your employer is paying your health insurance. And by the way, that comes out of your wages. Healthcare costs in America are very high, and your employer will tell you honestly, look, I can't give you more than a 3% wage increase because I got a 10% increase in your healthcare costs. You want that? Or if you're a union negotiating, you know what they'll say? Hey, you want decent wages? We're going to have to cut back on your healthcare. That's what every union has to deal with, every negotiating session. So we're paying for it through employers out of pocket. We pay through it through Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Administration, etc. What I am proposing is really not radical. It's what exists in Canada and other countries. It is publicly funded, like the police departments, and like libraries are, like public education. This is publicly funded in a progressive way. So right now, rather than paying out of your own pocket, if you are a family, let's just say you're self-employed right now, and you are, you have a couple of kids and a wife, it could cost you $15,000, $20,000 a year in insurance costs. Well, that's all eliminated. Will you have to pay more in taxes? Of course you will. Maybe it depends on your income level, but it could be that you'll be paying $12,000 more in taxes, but not $20,000 more in premiums, co-payments, and deductibles. You save money. So it's paying taxes rather than paying money to the insurance company. You got a better deal through the tax system.
So the most painful thing in today's system is these surprise bills, the number one cause of bankruptcy, and the psychological pain that comes from that, just worrying, stressed,
yes,
in debt.
You got it.
And just basically afraid constantly of getting sick because you don't know if insurance is going to cover it. And if you're not insured, you don't know how much it's going to cost. So you're not going to go to the hospital, even if there's something wrong with you, if there's pain and all that. So you just live in a state of fear, psychological fear. That's the number one problem. It's just not just financial, psychological.
Look, and I think you said it very well. I'm chairman of the committee that deals with this stuff. So I talk to a lot of doctors. And doctors in Vermont and all over this country tell me that they are astounded. People walk into their offices much sicker than they should have been. And the doctor said, why didn't you come in here 6 months ago when you first, felt your symptoms? And they said, well, I have a high deductible. I have a $10,000 deductible. I don't have any money to pay. I'm uninsured. Some of those people don't make it. Other people, and this is what is totally crazy, they end up in the hospital at huge expense to the system, rather than getting the care they need when they needed it. So that is how, I'll give you another example of it. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. 1 out of 4 Americans can't afford the drugs their doctors prescribe. So you walk into the doctor's office, they say, okay, Lex, you got this, that, and the other thing. Here's a prescription. You can't afford to fill it. What happens? You get sicker. You end up in the emergency room, which is an extremely expensive proposition. Okay. Or you end up in the hospital, rather than dealing with the problem when it occurs. And what is not talked about, I mentioned earlier how we don't talk about some of the major issues. The estimate is that some 60,000 people in America die every single year unnecessarily because they can't get to a doctor when they need because of financial reasons. And you want to hear even crazier, 1 out of 4 people who get cancer treatment in this country either go bankrupt or deplete their financial resources of their family. So your point is right. If somebody diagnoses you with cancer, you're scared to death. You're worried about how you're going to live, you're going to die, what's going to happen. And then on top of that, you got to worry about whether your family goes bankrupt. How insane and cruel is that? So to me, I think healthcare is what unites us all. Everybody has family, they get sick. We all get born, we all die, we all want care. And we all have got to come together to create a system that works for all of us, not just the drug companies or the insurance companies.
There's just so many stories, and not even the horrific stories. There's countless horrific stories, but just basic stories of cost. Like my friend, a Dr. Peter Attia, has this story where he happens to be wealthy, so he can afford it, but he had to take his son to the emergency room, and the son was dehydrated. And the bill was $6,000. They just did a basic test and gave him an IV, a basic thing. And he has really good insurance, and the insurance covered $4,000 of it. So he had to, at the end, pay $2,000 for a basic emergency room visit. And there's a lot of families for whom that one visit for such a simple thing would be just financially devastating.
And you know what? People know that. And you know what they say? I don't feel well today.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. I ain't going to go to that emergency room, because I don't want a $6,000 bill. And what happens? He had insurance that paid 2/3 of it, right?
Yes.
So what happens if he didn't? What happens if he didn't have money? He'd be hounded by bill collectors for the rest of his life. So it is a disgusting system. It is an inhumane system. But the insurance companies and the drug companies are very powerful, and they make a lot of campaign contributions, have a lot of lobbyists, and we are where we are. But I think, the American people want fundamental changes there.
So that's another good example of a really popular idea that is not implemented because of the money in politics.
You got it. That's a wonder. And I'll tell you that, not only is it not implemented because of money, it's not even discussed. All right, so I'm saying here, and no one disputes me, we are spending twice as much per person on healthcare, right? And yet 85 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured, and our life expectancy is lower than virtually every other major country on earth. Do you think that might be an issue that we'd be discussing?
Again, if a single politician discusses it, they get punished for it. So there needs to be a mass movement, and probably, from my perspective, it has to come from the very top. It has to come from the president. And the president has to be a populist president where they don't care about the parties with the rich people. They just speak out because they know it's a popular message and they know it's the right thing.